My name's Jacqui Lewis. I'm the clinical nutritionist for bnmulti. And we have a special guest with us tonight, which takes the heat off me and is fantastic. And also gives you guys, some different insight from another perspective that's not all just about nutrition. So tonight, I welcome Nathan Tomaccio. Nathan is a clinical exercise physiologist. He got involved in this realm through his own story, which we all, same thing with weight loss surgery. We're all led down some path somehow. And Nathan incurred an injury during his schooling years, which led him to be working closely with physios and exercise physiologists for himself, which sparked his interest in exploring his studies in exercise physiology. And now Nathan is fully qualified and has been working with Healthy Connections, who we've teamed up with this month to run your weekly exercise classes 3 times a week. So tonight we're going to go through benefits of exercise after weight loss surgery and also cover different aspects of the ideas and the methodologies behind the classes that Nathan has structured for you all. Ideally, you can attend, a few times a week to get the main benefits from each of the different formats of the classes. And basically just to help you, get kick-started. I know a lot of people from around the country are, all our gyms are shut, all our usual routine is upset. And we thought this was a great way to bring you something new and different and pertinent to your own health and fitness as well. So without further ado, I'll welcome Nathan. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Jack. It's my pleasure. So I'm very stoked to be part of this program and working with all the members of bnmulti. So it's a new experience for me, but so far I've been enjoying it. And I'm really looking forward to it.
And we're running the classes 3 times a week. Can you tell us a little bit about what angle you're taking with each of the topics that you're, the way you're structuring the classes and what's involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess as a bit of background, when I first started with my degree, it was very focused on just the exercise. Just went on mute there for a little bit. Can you hear me now?
Put you to sleep, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. So I've sort of, designed the program that it covers 3 big elements that I find is very important for exercise and physical activity. And we'll talk about a few different habits, I guess, you can build on to help optimize your exercise and your energy levels. But to begin with, the classes are essentially structured around our heart health, our strength and functional capacity, and then a little bit around just breath work and balance. So we'll touch on them a bit further down the track.
I might interrupt you quickly, Nathan, sorry, but everyone who's watching, if you wouldn't mind just muting your microphones, please. And that way I won't keep muting Nathan when I'm trying to shut down the background sound. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, Nathan, go ahead.
So I guess with my work currently, so with Healthy Connections, it's an exercise physiology clinic, and we offer a combination of funded services and group services for funded clients and private clients. So I've had a big experience working with a range of different conditions and working with individualized programs and group programs. With that, I've seen across the board that you'll get a big variety in people's views around what they should be doing for exercise and what's the most important types of exercise. And over the time, especially because I've worked with, I guess, a little bit more of an older population, but it does carry over to all ages. Getting that good combination of different modalities I find is quite important. With that, that's where I've worked on trying to not just focus in on one specific thing, whereby we're just doing cardio classes, trying to get that burn, or we're just doing resistance training. This is aiming to a bit more holistic and a bit more broad, so we can target all aspects of movement.
And so this week's classes, what have we got on the schedule?
on the first class we have on a Monday is a cardiac focused one. So there's definitely big benefits, especially after any surgery, but just getting back to having a bit more of a functional capacity. It's focused around movements that will help to elevate your heart rate, put your body under a little bit of stress, but healthy stress, where you'll find yourself getting a little bit puffy, working at a higher capacity than you're used to. And the whole benefit of that is we're allowing our body to adapt to those good levels of stress and increase our capacity that we can actually work at. And of course, that's great for our heart health, our respiratory health, and our circulatory system. So if you're joining on that in that class, you can sort of expect to be doing movements for roughly a minute at a time and a combination of 3 to 4 movements before we have a bit of a rest period. It's designed around some of the aspects of the recommended guidelines for, I guess, physical activity, particularly cardio-based activity. So on average, we're wanting to aim for roughly that half an hour of activity each day at roughly that moderate intensity. Particularly if you're just starting off, you can work for that light to moderate intensity. But the beauty of it is you don't have to do that in one big hit. You can break that up into little 5-minute intervals or 10-minute intervals throughout your day. And I guess the Monday class is programmed where it will give you variations that you can do either seated or standing. So if you're finding that standing is a bit too much for your capacity at present, then you can go to the slightly easier versions during sitting. And we're working up to ideally being able to do 5-minute bouts before we have rest periods. So we're slowly going to build up on our capacity and our endurance and our tolerance to that sort of exercise. The other aspect of it is I love with some of my clients, I'll give them exercises, particularly seated ones, where you can implement into your daily habits, where we can match them with a habit that can be good for the leisure side of our life and relaxation. So for example, just enjoying a little bit of TV and sitting back on the couch. But I like to adapt some principles with clients, or a little bit of a strategy where if you're watching some TV, you may break out your ad breaks with doing some of the exercises I demonstrate in the class. So you can use it how you like, but at the very least, you're going to get about half an hour's worth of cardio in that session, and they're easy movements that you can replicate outside of the sessions.
And that's the key, isn't it? Taking it into everyday life. I think we get caught up in thinking that now we've had this weight loss surgery, now I need to be exercising. And does that mean I have to go to the gym and, you know, lift weights and do all that, you know, I think our mainstream kind of thinking. Whereas I think there's even evidence to show that the level of incidental activity that you include in the day and the functionality of those movements are the key, as far as bringing about a more functional, healthy body overall, rather than, you know, half an hour in the gym here and there. You're better off weaving it into the way you actually live your day, as well as, you know, the concentrated bouts of exercise. But taking those movements into the things that you do on a daily basis is where it's at.
Yeah, completely agree with that. And it's looking at how much movement are you doing per day, in respect to how much exercise are you doing. So just having physical activity is definitely the most important factor. It's doing walking, doing a bit of moving around the house, just getting out and about, and I guess trying to break up some of the sedentary lifestyle that many of us live to begin with. And knowing that you don't have to transition straight into that really strenuous exercise. Your body is going to thank you if you progressively work into it. But finding a bit of enjoyment with it too, and being realistic with how you approach your exercise regime. So exercise can be quite limiting in a way, in the sense that it's very structured and you have to do certain things, whereas movement is extremely diverse. Going to a park, walking the dog, going for a bit of a hike, all of these things count toward physical activity and are just as good for your heart and lung health. But the beauty of exercise is we can work in a structured way to progressively build up that capacity. And it's great when you are attending class, particularly when it is structured in a way that you can work at your intensity. And you find maybe this class, if you attended this Monday, or if you do choose to attend next Monday, and you may find it's a little bit difficult to keep up, but over the coming weeks, you continue with it and you maybe replicate some of the stuff outside of it. And by that last week, you're achieving that whole class at feeling, a bit more energized, a little bit out of breath. That's a great result, and showing that your body's adapting to that structured exercise.
That's a good point when you talk about movement and exercise, and that they are different things. Do you know what I mean? I think we all just term it as exercise, but how would you decipher movement as a comparison to exercise?
Well, I guess movement is just physical activity. It's moving your body. Exercise is generally, it's structured. It's got sets or reps or duration. It's got a specific continuous movement that you're doing. But you can be just much more with movement, and you have a much more diverse range with it. And you can have a bit more, sometimes a bit more fun with it, a bit more of a play with it. You don't have to focus in on so hard on specifics of what you're doing necessarily.
Yeah, thank you. We were talking earlier about building effective habits to optimize your energy levels. Can you tell me a little bit more about how we can instill day-to-day habits that would have that kind of outcome?
Yeah, 100%. So I think the biggest one I would start with, and I start checking in with my clients at Healthy Connections as well. Sometimes they'll come in for an exercise session, but you can see that they're a little bit low on energy already. And just having the discussion about sleep, I think, is very important. So particularly if you are getting into exercise, and if you are moving into that level where you're doing a bit more high intensity exercise, where you're going to have more loading on your joints and your body, sleep is very important for both recovery and, in a way, injury prevention because of that. But it's also great just for our mental health, for like our physical and mental health together. So sleep is a big one. And I think trying to adapt a habit where, like back when we were kids, I'm not sure about your mum, but mine used to set me a bedtime. So trying to have a bit of a bedtime and trying to get to bed by around that 10:30 or 10 o'clock mark is one habit I try to instill with some clients, whereby we're getting to bed at a reasonable time. We're trying to limit a little bit of our screen time leading up to bed, and if possible, allowing us the opportunity to at least get that 7 to 8 hours sleep. Some other big habits just around, I'm sure you can touch on this, Jacqui, is just looking at our hydration and our nutrition.
Yeah,
and
I can definitely do that.
Yeah.
They're the two keys as far as weight loss surgery patients go. We do bang on about nutrition, and there's a reason for that. But I'd like to highlight hydration, and particularly as the weather starts to warm up. Soon after surgery, the most prevalent reason for rehospitalization is actually dehydration in weight loss surgery patients, because they're getting used to this new tummy, and we're trying to work out how to eat food and not combine it with liquid, but get enough liquid. So I'm sure our audience will agree that every day is a bit of a juggle as far as meeting nutritional needs, meeting energy requirements, and ticking all the boxes as far as hydration goes. But yeah, absolutely. Being dehydrated will just make you feel overall quite exhausted. So it is one of the key factors.
Yep.
And of course, nutrition, which we talk about every week. So I won't go into that. We're here for exercise today.
Good. Awesome.
They'll listen to me at another time.
And obviously we've just touched on movement, but I think that's another great one to try to build a habit around. And that's probably where I'll fit into this whole program.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously that's my role as an exercise physiologist. So with the movement, I guess you can try and build on those habits where, like you mentioned, Jacqui, having a bit of that incidental exercise. So whereby if you are going to work, you may park a little bit further away, or you may take the stairs instead of the elevator. But there's other little factors where if you are trying to build on, for example, a bit of a morning exercise routine where you're going to go for a walk, it's trying to make it as easy as possible in that morning. So doing things like putting out your running shoe, getting your gear sorted the night before, so you can just wake up and get going and build on those habits. There are other factors that are really worthwhile looking into, because if you can start to develop a little bit of those achievable small habits over time, you build a bit more momentum. And before you know it, you're doing those walks times a week without too much resistance from yourself, and you're starting to enjoy them.
Yeah, and I think if you're organized and it's quite seamless, it's more enjoyable because you're not running around in a flap, are you,
Yeah.
trying to get ready? And it's very easy when you're not organized to think, oh, I don't have my shoes handy, I just won't do that today. So it's all about putting less hurdles in the way, but also making it a bit more fun. If it's all ready to go, it's a really pleasant experience. You get up, you know where everything is, and you know, you go skipping along to your exercise class or your
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And I guess, yeah, the last one is just sort of checking in with yourself and with others if you can have a bit of that social support. So anytime, especially for exercise, if you are able to do it with a friend, either you're doing a special class together, you're joining a group together, or just doing a walk together, or another one whereby you're even just communicating with each other and checking in with how you're going with your exercise goals. That's another great factor that you can adapt, whereby it helps you stay on top of it, but you also have that other person there for a little bit of that social support, and makes it a bit more enjoyable again, and allows you to be a bit more accountable with you and your friend, but helps you to achieve your goals. So I'm just setting up that where we have a bit more sleep, we have a bit more energy because of that. We are looking at our nutrition and trying to structure our movement and nutrition in ways that makes it easier, like you said, getting rid of those hurdles, and then having a little bit of that support there to check in with. You're a lot more likely to stay consistent with your particular exercise journey or nutrition journey. So all very important things I find, and very useful that everyone can adapt.
And bite-sized chunks is what you're offering, which is fantastic. You have also mentioned, and one of the classes that we're offering is also about the breath. You have done a lot of reading in this area because we were talking about it earlier today. Can you expand upon, you know, how important just the actual act of breathing in and out is? We take it for granted, but there's a lot that underlies that. What do you think about it all?
So yeah, I've done a workshop a couple of weeks ago about some breath work and a bit of reading. Are we able to reference the book?
Yeah, I'll put them in the chat actually, so that if people are interested, they can do some further reading.
Yeah, so in the work discussed the importance of nasal breathing. So a lot of this stuff I'll also touch on here. If you want a bit of an extra reference, there's a book by James Nestor called Breath, The New Science of a Lost Art, and I'd highly recommend it. But to summarize some of the key points from his book and what I've been taught from the workshop, essentially, nasal breathing is seen to be a lot more effective and essentially the natural way that we should be breathing. The nose is very important for filtering and humidifying air and allowing more optimum of oxygen. So I think a big one is just trying to spend a little bit of time to see, can you breathe nasally comfortably, and can you be a bit more aware of how we are breathing at rest. But another factor that I'm noticing a lot more, especially with my clients, is that a lot of us do tend to shallow breathe and chest breathe as well. So the diaphragm, you may have heard before that, breathe down and breathe into the stomach, but the diaphragm is very important for actually helping with that, allowing the air to get in and out, especially the exhale. Allowing air out is very important to then get more new fresh air into the lungs. So what you might find if you ever get scared or stressed from an event, you might find yourself actually mouth breathing through your chest and breathing a bit faster and shallower. So some cool little techniques and practices I've learned, I adapted them into our session today, but it is quite, I think, important just to be able to recenter yourself a little every now and look at, can we breathe in through our nose? Can we do longer duration exhales? And sometimes just slow down the body. You can also use breath work and different techniques to help energize the body and get your body feeling more full, more prepared for a movement. So I think they're two key concepts that, I'd like to work along with my clients and members in this group to just raise your awareness a little bit around that, and try to adapt it when you are doing my exercise sessions or you're exercising in general, seeing if you can maintain that nasal breathing. The other area that is a big one is controlling the abdominal pressure. So if we are holding our breath or bracing a lot of the time and essentially pushing pressure down onto factors like the pelvic floor and not being able to control that abdominal pressure very well, that's up to that doing some breath work and a bit of conscious awareness of some core activation engagement can really help to correctly stabilize the spine and I guess moderate the pressure around our abdominal area. So some of that stuff we may touch on. It is a little bit hard through virtual classes, but it is worth becoming a little bit aware of it. And I'll do my best to share some education in our Tuesday class, which is centered a bit about breath work.
Thank you. And I've posted the name of that book in the chat if anyone's interested, but it's heavily linked to the autonomic nervous system, which is also termed our rest and digest. So when you're in that fight or flight, if you've got a busy day or you're feeling quite anxious and you can actually lengthen out the breathing, it actually starts to tell your nervous system that it's going to be okay. So it takes you out of that heightened state and back into a more calm place as well. So it is definitely something to focus on. That's why all the yogis talk about breathing, isn't it? Meditation, just to focus on the breath. And I do think it's undervalued in our busy.
And you'll be shocked how much of a change it can make.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even that
that's exactly
if you
right.
elongate the out breath when you're trying, if you can't sleep and you just breathe in for 4 counts, hold the breath, then breathe out for 6 counts, you'll be off to sleep in no time at all. It's my magic trick for, unwinding that autonomic system that's running too high at that time of night. So thank you. I think, the resources you're offering are also fantastic. The next thing we were going to talk about was feet and our connections with our feet and how we, are we losing, what are we losing by wearing shoes and sitting in chairs all day?
Yeah, so we discussed some of this today as well. Your feet have thousands of nerve endings on the bottom of them. So we were designed to essentially get around barefoot, be able to feel the ground, and your feet is like a bit of a sensor. You'll feel the ground and tell your brain what the surface is like, and also if it's unstable, be able to detect that and send nerve impulses up the cord so that your body can adjust and keep a balance. I think the big problem with footwear is it originally was designed to protect us as a bit of a layer against the elements, but over time became more around fashion. So now you see all the pointed boots, all the different shoes, big, thick soles. And I've seen some bit in my experience too, where the foot is getting quite cramped up and we get all these different supports and everything that are meant to help out. So I think if you start going a little bit barefoot in small periods, that is a great way to start. But I did a workshop and a bit of learning with an organization called the Foot Collective, and they're really cool if you wanted to check them out. But basically, we want to start building up some strength because your foot is your base. So if you can't connect through the feet, it's a lot harder to connect through the hips, which are the biggest joint of the body, and very important for gait, balance, stability. That is what some of our Tuesday class will be centered around, is restoring the function of our feet, trying to get back into some good balance and proprioception, and looking at how to restore some mobility through our hips. So if there's anything else you wanted to touch on with that one, Jacqui?
I think that's a key, is that we are, and we talk about our environment being obesogenic these days, is we can sit on the couch and change the channel now, whereas when I was a child, I had to get up and do it. So the way our technological advances are either helping or hindering us is, some of them are fabulous, the others are helping us to lie and be still. So it's making everything easier, which is that incidental movement of everything that's being taken out. So you can see why our society and our trajectory is leading towards obesity, because we're trying to make everything quick, we're trying to make it convenient, and we're also trying to make it that we don't have to put too much effort into it physically. So I think the easier marketing and products and gadgets make our lives, the less movement we have in the day. And we now sit at computers. I think 30 years ago that wasn't a job role, was it? We all had working lives that were quite active, so we could have a big farmer's breakfast because we knew we were going to work it off during the day in our daily, women were even washing by hand, that sort of stuff, before we had all these gadgets to make things easier. And the whole removal of those activities is taking away our overall bodily kind of functionality. So for someone who, like yourself in your job role, Nathan, I'd imagine you're quite active because you're working with clients and you're taking them through exercise. It's not that common anymore that, jobs are not being taken into a seated sit in front of your computer, and particularly now we're all locked up. Sitting in chairs in that, shortened hip position and our feet tucked in behind us is just shortening our muscles up, really.
That's exactly right.
And so exercise like you're offering is that functional, real life movement that would also help throughout the day to help, get through with, healthy movement patterns and strength to do that kind of thing as well. So I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. And individualizing programs is very important. But there definitely is some very common asymmetries that you see across the board, like tight hip flexors, like weak thoracic spine.
Yeah, and I love
having that posture where we can hunch and we can sit in chairs.
Yeah. So, gamers' bodies.
That's it. Yeah. So
we're seeing children now with, kyphosis because they've been sitting gaming and playing with phones. But, the children in this generation of kids, I wonder what their, overall functionality will be at the end of their lives, because they're so much more restricted in their movement than we ever were.
And that's, I guess, why I've adapted this sort of style for programming as well, because I can sometimes, with my age group and the people around me, where they will work those long jobs where you're sitting 8 hours a day, and then go to the gym and think, I need to flog my body now to make up for it. And that's, I guess, the other side of it, where you have a sedentary lifestyle coupled with a high intensity exercise program. And in my personal opinion, that it's not great for longevity. There's often going to be some burnout or some injury somewhere down the track. So trying to adapt that lifestyle of just movement, finding time for yourself.
It's a bit more balanced.
Getting a bit more of that holistic approach for it, and including the exercise.
I have a fantastic question here, and I'd love to really expand it because I think it's also very important. Just try and find it in the chat. One of the, here it is. Eleni was asking, what's the difference? You'll love to talk about this. What is the difference between an exercise physiologist and a personal trainer? Is there any difference?
I guess it depends on how much you've done, how much you experience. So exercise physiologist, you've generally done your 4-year degree. And I think a big change is that you will go through university having subjects on cardiovascular health, musculoskeletal conditions, your aging populations, and your cancer. So you potentially be getting a lot more in-depth knowledge of those conditions. And as part of our role, it's not about necessarily diagnosing. So you'll get that from a physiotherapist or other allied health, but it's knowing how these conditions develop, how they work, and being able to then exercise specifically for that. So I guess in my experience, I've worked with stroke patients, with joint replacements, or your metabolic conditions like diabetes, your blood pressures, your cholesterols, and being able to look at someone with their particular limitation, what their specific goal is, and adapting your exercise regime very specific to them, whether it be getting better for transfers, or they have asymmetries where one side of their musculoskeletal system is a lot more atrophied and not working. So I can't speak for personal trainers, I think it varies out there, but it's definitely less of healthy populations and that strength and conditioning or weight loss goals. It's a bit more rehabilitative or condition-based.
Yeah, quite specific. And I would imagine for our audience, a safer option, which is obviously, as a general rule, weight loss surgery patients are given a dietitian and referred to an exercise physiologist. I think with personal training, you're right, there's different levels. Some have got a degree, they've done like human movement or something like that. Others have done just the basic, and I've done all of them, fitness courses, which might go for 6 weeks, and then you're out there training people. So if you've got someone who's done basic anatomy, and been given kind of here's how you do some weight training, and you are a weight loss surgery patient with some special conditions that you need to consider, like sore knees or even the surgery itself, I think if you turn up to one of those personal trainers, your outcomes might be a little bit different. Whereas exercise physiology, I have that broader understanding of how to deal with those limitations and bring out the best safely.
Well said, Jacqui.
It's a bit of a bugbear. So I agree with it. And I think that all of it can go really well for people. And some personal trainers are absolutely wonderful. And they might have just done that, the minimal qualification, and others are not quite sure of those special populations, but it's their income, and they won't say no to someone who's turning up with those kind of considerations. So it is worth asking, what are you going to do for me, and how safe will that be, and what's your experience with it? Whereas exercise physiologist, you know that you're going to get that. Yeah,
and I guess checking in with whoever your coach or practitioner is, ensuring that they have an understanding of your condition and your needs, and ensure your exercise prescription is safe, and they're checking that. So I think they're the key components, and knowing what the guidelines are, what the contraindications are, and knowing how to monitor your resting levels or exercising levels throughout is very important, particularly for those slightly higher risk patients, or those who've undergone surgery.
Thank you. I'm aware of the time is all. Do you have any other points you'd like to make before we wrap up?
I guess overall it's kind of summarizing what we've talked about, but if you're checking as you can, try to get that under order, your nutrition, your hydration, and then I'll work with you, or you can hopefully get some points from today in terms of how to adapt your movement and elicit some good behaviors. I think if you can start finding active or activities where you enjoy them and they are getting you moving, then that's the best place to start. And knowing that you don't have to flog your body to get benefits out of it. You can progressively build up your body with respect. Listen to your body when you are exercising, but also try to build on some of those habits and gain some momentum to keep it going, and progressively work at a higher intensity.
And that's the key, I think, when you're doing it safely and you're seeing results. That's the motivation, is that you're not coming home from, high intensity exercise sessions where you're flogged for 3 days trying to recover. I think if you do take it at that functional, building on that base level, things just are more enjoyable. So they're more easy to stick to. Whereas big, it's like binging on exercise. You see people do it in January, join up at the gym and just go for it. And it's not sustainable. So it's a 3-week binge, and then it's oh my God, I'm so tired and broken, I can't continue. So if you're doing just a little bit at a time and it's functional and it's building that base, it's certainly something that, it's also, the weight loss surgery journey is a marathon, it's not a race. So it's also, don't have to be too excited about the amount and the intensity to begin with. Just do it safely so you don't have injury and setback, and then time off because you've, pulled your calf muscle, or you've been running, and it's too soon. It's safety over anything, I think, for longevity and consistency.
Yeah, they're the two big words right there, I think. So that's what I always look back to. It's building on it progressively over time and making it a lifestyle, not a 6-week fad or 3-week fad that burns you out, and then you let go for a bit and then at the same place. So that's it. Look at it for life, and start to build on some behaviors and practice.
And building it into your day to day
that you can stick with you for life. And
absolutely.
That's it.
Sorry, you're breaking up and I keep interrupting you. It's terrible.
That's okay.
Well, thank you. We did have a question about when the classes are running. I've directed them back to the group. Off the top of your head,
Yep.
what are the session times?
So Monday at 1 p.m, that is the cardio-based class, and that's run by my colleague, Savannah. The Tuesday at 8 a.m, that's run by myself. That's working on a little bit of breath work, posture, and balance.
Right.
And the Thursday class coming up, that will be at 11 a.m. That one is going to be a bit of mobility training and functional strength training. So probably the one I enjoy all of them. I like that one almost the most. So there are your 3 classes there.
It's a good combination.
Yeah.
And that's for this month. So they can just join in the group, in the BN bariatric group, which I think is where you've all come from. There's an announcement at the top of the page for the classes this month. And yeah, it's our way of bringing exercise to you in quite trying times for a lot of our audience. So we hope you enjoy it. And then, you know, there'll be a view to look at continuing that. Nathan, if anyone would like to contact you about exercise physiology and your own personal support, is there somehow we can direct them to you?
Yeah, you could have my email would be one way.
Yep.
So that's just nathan.t@healthyconnections.org.au.
Yep.
Or you can contact Healthy Connections, the exercise clinic, if you ever wanted to actually book in to have something like a one-on-one assessment. So just Googling that, you'll find all their details there.
Yeah, I've popped that in the chat.
Beautiful.
And yeah, you're always welcome to ask your questions in the group too, guys. And Nathan, I noticed, joined our group today. So if you've got any questions about anything we talked about tonight, or things that you've been trying as far as exercise go, and you're wondering if they're a safe option for you, or you're just kind of exploring ideas, please post your questions in the group and we'll answer them for you as well. Thank you. I think
I'm more than happy.
Yeah, it's really great to have you on board. So thank you very much for that. Does anyone have any final questions? Anything they'd like to unmute and ask, or pop in the chat box? Here's your last opportunity. But again, if it comes up later on, just pop it in the group and we'll answer it. So thank you everyone for joining us. And we'll look forward to you. You need to register for the classes. There's links in the group, and they're just run on a Zoom platform. So you're very welcome to join anytime you like this month, 3 times a week. You'll be fit as a fiddle by the end of it all. So thanks, Nathan, for your time tonight. And thank you everyone else who's joined in. Have a wonderful week. Good night.
Thank you very much, Jacqui. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.